Aram on Everything Emergency Podcast. It is Saturday, October 19th. We have some breaking news in the southern section coming from the Dean of LA Prep Sports Writers, Eric Sondheimer of the LA Times, with the story that the Mission League has voted to give both Alemany and Loyola losses, putting an end to this very controversial situation that lasted the better part of a week here after their game, originally scheduled for last Friday, wasn't able to be played due to the fires in the North San Fernando Valley. This is an awful conclusion to this situation. Football games should not be decided by principals in a room meeting at a high school. Football games should not be decided by ADs sitting in a room. They should be decided on the field. And that is what we thought was going to happen in this situation, but as it turns out, that is not the case. I will read to you from Eric Sondheimer's article. Here is the statement put out by the league. The principals of the Mission League met this morning at Notre Dame High School and spent considerable time reflecting on the circumstances surrounding the October 11 Alemany vs. Loyola football game that resulted in a no contest. The principals voted to accept the recommendation of the Mission League athletic directors, and both Loyola and Alemany will take a loss for the game. So, the ADs, of all people, they were the ones who proposed that both teams take a loss. I have a hard time getting my head around that. I really do. You know, you don't want people with a vested interest against you to decide your fate. You know what I'm saying? If you and I are competing for the same girl, and she gives me the option to say, a proposal of, hey, which one of you should go? Of course I'm going to say you should go and I should be in. I'm just assuming that there's no way Alemany and Loyola both decide, the ADs voted or decided that it would be good for them to take a loss in this situation. I'm just assuming that. Maybe they did. And I don't know how the other four came up with their decision. But again, I don't like it when somebody who has a vested interest against you gets to decide your fate. And again, these are things that should be decided on the football field. Hell, even a coin flip would have been better than this. At least that, I don't know. I'm speechless. I don't know why I'm doing a pod when I'm speechless, but nonetheless, I'm really shocked that they didn't do a California tiebreaker. And, these California tiebreakers have been used throughout the history of the Southern section. It's a real simple deal, in my opinion. After Week 10, the following Saturday morning, yes, the morning after you played a game, you each get a possession. You go to a neutral high school in most cases. You get a possession from the 25, each of you, and we figure it out from there until somebody wins, somebody gets ahead points-wise. There you have it. Somehow, some way, I guess this wasn't a good enough option for them, even though, Fred J. Robledo from the SGV Tribune had tweeted to me yesterday that he had heard that was actually what they were leaning toward doing or likely to do. Something happened on the way to heaven, I guess, because this obviously wasn't an option for the league, and I'd love to know why that was. And I really hope it's not because, we don't want our kids back out there on a Saturday after, playing on a Friday night. I'm reading here the rest of Eric Sondheimer's article, and it says that the vote was overwhelming but not unanimous. So that tells me that Loyola or Alemany or both probably were not interested in just calling this a loss and moving on. They probably wanted a different solution. and that didn't happen. So again, it goes back to, if it's unanimous, why would the other athletic directors in the league be supportive of, anything better for them than both these teams taking a loss? Just doesn't make any sense to me. We're going to need more clarification on this if we can get it. That moves Alemany's record in the Mission League to 1-2. Would have been interesting to see how it played out differently. Loyola also 1-2. And I got to think, there's a lot of reaction right now on Twitter. I got to think, and a lot of people are feeling this way, that, and I got to say, my buddy Kerry out there on Twitter, he kind of put it best. He said, so Loyola breaks even, Alemany gets screwed. When Loyola's a 20-point underdog in this game, yeah, granted, anything could happen. When they're a 20-point underdog in this game, it does work out better for them that Alemany also gets a loss in a game that Loyola probably would have lost. Again, it's hard to just assume that they would lose, but that's what we're going to do here. So there just could not be, there had to be something done here. There just could not be an unbalanced league standings at the end of the year. I know a lot of people are asking for that. Why couldn't you just call it a no contest? You just can't have 4 teams play 5 games and 2 teams play 4 games. It just can't happen. You had to decide this some way. This is the way they did it. Again, not on the field, but in a classroom or a boardroom or a meeting room. Not good. Not a good look at all for what's supposed to be the number 2 league in the Southern section. Not a good look at all. Now, here's the next bit of business here. Both Alemany and Loyola are the 2 teams in the Mission League that are not in Division 1/2. Alemany is in D3, where there's 18 teams, 16 make the playoffs. Loyola is in Division 4, where there's 20 teams, again, 16 teams make the playoffs. It behooves you to finish as high as possible in the league so that you can get in. And boy, at 1-2 right now, each of these teams, that stings right now. We'll see how the rest of their divisions play out. So that's another thing to keep your eye on. Now, I want to give you a little perspective on the lead up to this. Obviously, this game was supposed to be played. The brush fires, wildfires in the North San Fernando Valley caused that to get screwed up that Friday night, and the 2 schools were kind of scrambling for how they would play the game, going forward. Would it be Saturday the next day? Would it be Monday 2 days later? From what I understand, from what I've been able to piece together, Alemany had 2 issues with playing on Saturday. 1 was transportation. 2 was not being able to staff their coaching staff. Staffing issues with the coaching staff. As you know, Casey Clauston came on the Aram on Everything podcast, said he was in Vegas on Saturday with his wife to see Journey play. So he had plans. He was out of town. Alemany was pushing for a Monday game. Loyola was not in favor of the Monday game. And so from what I've heard from one source, and I don't know if it's true, both school presidents talked on the phone and decided a Monday game was out of the question. And that's what ultimately led to trying to find another solution. Again, that's unconfirmed. But if the league is sitting here saying, well, you both deserve a loss because one of you couldn't play Saturday, one of you couldn't do Monday, so you both take a loss. If the league is sitting here saying, you both get a loss because you both couldn't figure out an alternative, you couldn't figure out a way to do this, then that might be the reasoning for this crappy decision. But this is not popular with a lot of people right now, and I don't blame them. And this is going to be very interesting to see what it does to the final standings and what effect, if any, it has as far as the playoffs are concerned. But there you have it, the breaking news on Saturday. The canceled Loyola Alemany game results in a loss for both teams. Now get back to your college football. Enjoy the rest of your football weekend. And we'll be back with you on the Aram on Everything podcast next week.